as long as we've been able to think, we've wondered how we got here. And some of the ideas we've come up with have been, well, remarkable. Every civilization and religion in history's had its own. In one, the universe arrived after a snail's shell mysteriously released a hen and a pigeon. In another, a giant emerged from an enormous egg. Today, we have the Big Bang, the equally remarkable idea that the universe simply began from nothing.
First of all, what do we really know about the Big Bang?
I find it hard to accept the Big Bang theory.
This is the story of how the Big Bang evolved from a left-field proposition
Two theories of how the universe itself came into being.
to an accepted explanation of how the universe began.
Only experiments can tell us what the way forward is.
We have the outrageous ambition to understand the world, how it works. That's our objective.
As told by over 50 years of BBC science.
I call it sometimes the greatest adventure of the human mind.
For generations, scientists, and particularly physicists like me, have tried to understand how the world around us came into being. In the mid-1940s, as many physicists returned to the front line of science and began focusing once again on the most fundamental questions, there was deep disagreement about the origin of our universe. At the center of this debate were two opposing theories. The first is that the universe has always been around. It had no beginning, it'll have no end, but it's pretty much the way we see it today. It was the brainchild of Fred Hoyle, a distinguished mathematician and cosmologist who worked here at Cambridge University. Professor Hoyle passionately disagreed with the second idea, that the universe somehow was created out of nothing in an almighty explosion. But ironically, it was he who ensured that this everything from nothing idea captured the public imagination. In 1949, he coined the term Big Bang, originally intended as a belittling term of abuse.
The BBC presents The Nature of the Universe.
The speaker is Fred Hoyle, a Cambridge mathematician and Fellow of St. John's College.
This Big Bang assumption is much the less palatable of the two, for it's an irrational process that can't be described in scientific terms. On philosophical grounds, too, I can't see any good reason for preferring the Big Bang idea. Indeed, it seems to me, in the philosophical sense, to be a distinctly unsatisfactory notion, since it puts the basic assumption out of sight, where it can never be challenged by a direct appeal to observation.
Professor Hoyle called his own idea the steady state model, and at the time, many cosmologists preferred it to its rival. Hoyle passionately believed that his theory would eventually be borne out by observation, whereas the Big Bang would, and to his mind, could not. The truth is, at a time when computers were men with pencils, and only fruit flies and rhesus monkeys had ever been into space, saying anything meaningful about how the universe came into being just by looking at the stars was exceptionally difficult. In 1929, however, a man called Hubble had looked into the night sky with his telescope and noticed an extraordinary thing. A remarkable observation that would precipitate the revolutionary idea that Professor Hoyle would eventually sneeringly label the Big Bang. What Hubble saw from his mountaintop in California was that the steady, old, dependable universe was in fact anything but. Galaxies, he noted, were hurtling away from each other at alarming speeds. On the eve of the Great Depression, a universe in chaos was the last thing people wanted to hear about. The reason that Hubble knew this intergalactic weirdness was in full swing was down to some thoroughly uncontroversial physics. Demonstrated with admirable surrealism by Horizon in 1978.
This Baroque experiment was actually first tried by a Dutch physicist in the flatlands of Holland, steam engine, uniform, bandsman and all. The schoolmasterly enthusiasts beside a canal in Kent have repeated the experiment for us in the same way, probably for the first time in 140 years.
Yes, half a semitone? Do you think?
Yes.
And what speed do you think he was doing? 40
I think about
kilometers?
40 kilometers.
The expert trumpeters on the train certainly held their pitch constant at a middle C, but listeners on the ground heard the tone change as the locomotive puffed by. It was the